Mass societies. During the Industrial Revolution, the middle class began living more luxurious lives as a result of their increase of power and wealth. Before the middle class's arrival, there were mainly two classes, aristocrats and working class. People in the middle class mainly worked as businessmen, merchants, shopkeepers, and accountants. During this time, education increased. Children were found to be living longer, for they now received nurture and stability that they once lacked. The middle class also saw a decline in blood sports popularity and instead enjoyed more domestic leisure activities and sports such as rugby and soccer, as well as attending theaters. However, there was also a rise in drinking and gambling within the middle class. The middle class is a group of people made up of businessmen and professionals. The middle class grew more and more powerful as the Industrial Revolution began to expand. Soon, middle and upper class people were exposed to higher quality housing, health, and food. They found living during the Industrial Revolution to be quite comfortable. This picture is a visual that represents the social classes during the period of industrialization. Landowners or aristocrats at the top, middle class in the middle, and working class at the bottom. The aristocracy was the upper class and consisted of wealthier and more privileged people. They were typically the businessmen and landowners. During the time of the industrialization, the aristocracy lost its high power and influence due to the new entrepreneurs and manufacturers that became even wealthier than they were from successful ideas and constructions. During the time period, the decision of the middle-class men when it came to marriage heavily was reliant on the idea of economics. As a result, men typically were married to women much younger than themselves. The growth of new jobs allows for women to receive more job opportunities working as secretaries, clerks, nurses, and teachers. They now had to juggle the life of a wife, mother, and working woman. Women were now also able to receive the rights of property. Despite the new available opportunities for women, there were still hardships, such as abuse and overwork in their work environment. During the Industrial Revolution, there was a large increase in population and low death rate due to medical breakthroughs. People began emigrating to industrialized regions while others emigrated to avoid being persecuted.
Before the 19th century, peasants worked on their own at home, but as the Second Industrial Revolution was introduced, people joined together at a central place. Working was much easier with the use of machinery. Women and children were now drawn into the workforce and drawn towards the city to work in factories. But soon, women lost their jobs again because machineries decreased the demand for labor. This picture displays children working in a textile factory. During the 19th century, it was common for children to be drawn into the workforce because of the demand for cheap labor. Poor houses were tax-supported residential institutions to which people were required to go if they could not support themselves. They believed that this would give them the opportunity to reform themselves and cure them from their bad habits. Life inside the poorhouse, people were required to follow strict rules and provide labor. Men and women were split up with no communication between them. Men and women also had to share toilet facilities. The Luddites were English workers that broke into early textile factories and smashed machinery. They were named after Ned Ludd. The acts of despair could not stop the Industrial Revolution, but Parliament quickly responded and passed a law making the destruction of machineries a capital offense. They soon came to realize that destroying machines would not improve their lives, so instead they formed labor unions to fight for higher wages and better working conditions. Growing up, Charles Dickens faced severe difficulties during his childhood. Due to his father's debt, he was forced to take a job in a factory. Because of this, he knew what life was like in the factories, and he was able to accurately portray this time period in his novels. In his novels, specifically Oliver Twist, He described the lives of people like him and showed the difference in social classes. Chartism was an attempt in Britain to build an independent political party devoted to the interests of the working class. Chartists were those who advocated the People's Charter. Throughout the 19th century, Britain reduced tariffs and introduced free trade. Taxes were also reduced to encourage economic growth.